With Season 2 about a month away, and a Season 1 video I'm not particularly happy with, as anything I made that year, I thought it'd be a fun idea to take a closer look at that season, and list what I consider to be the most defining moments. Fact is, Squid Game is insanely popular for a reason. Almost every episode has something most shows don't attempt. So to emphasize how good it is, we're going to take a look at the most defining moment in each episode. That's 9 in total, 1 per episode, and I'm going to base this on how impactful it is and the effect it has. Whether it be shocking, memorable, or in some cases devastating, these will be the things that made the show stand out and made it what it is today. So before we get into it, please remember to like the video, because nowadays it really means a lot. Red light, green light isn't exactly easy, as the point of the first episode is to introduce the characters and develop a setting. It does a fantastic job at that. We immediately know what kind of person Sung Gin-hun is, and traits about the supporting cast are established too. As you can see, I'm trying to use proper names now. If you get them wrong multiple times, please understand. But as for the game of the episode, it's intelligently saved till the end. I think you know what that game is, and the fact that people get killed for real shouldn't be that surprising. It's a great scene, maybe the most iconic, but if I had to pick one thing that truly defines the show in this episode, it would have to be the music. The cover of Fly Me to the Moon, sung by Korean artist Jo Woo-shin, that played as the contestants are shot dead one by one, is a great addition to this scene they honestly didn't have to add. You don't expect it, there's already a lot of memorable things here, like the iconic doll. But for a real damn solid first episode, this is one thing that beyond anything else shows us they're devoted. Not saying the rest isn't amazing, but if I had to pick one, this has to be it. The second episode is primarily regarded as the worst, or least good, but the way I see it, that's the opinion of somebody who thinks the show is without any flaws, and a somewhat dull episode is the worst it can do. Honestly, this is not my least favorite, it's actually commendable, as taking the time to give every character motivation and reason to be there makes the rest all the more impactful. So the defining moment here is easily when that happens. The players are given an opportunity to vote on either leaving or continuing the game, and the majority wins. Coincidentally, it's all tied up, and it's up to the old dying man to cast a deciding vote. Given he's dying of cancer, you think you'd vote to stay, and the game would continue then and there. But that's not what happens, he votes to leave. If you know who this person is, that makes sense, and I respect the decision. It may be a bit dull, but the fact that they did this is imperative to what the show is. Now when they get to the next game, you feel they're somewhat responsible, as they knew death was a possibility. It's not really a bad episode either, definitely not the best, but the second episode really doesn't need to be, so I have no issues here. I absolutely love the Honeycomb Challenge. It may be my favorite game, well, at least in concept, and coming after episode 2 and the bloodbath that was Red Light Green Light, it's a welcome change of pace. It's at this point we realize things are not remotely fair, and if something specifically stands out for any reason, maybe don't pick that. As you know, they must carve out the shape that they selected without breaking it, but they weren't told before choosing, and since Sung Gin-hun shows the umbrella, he thinks all hope is lost.
That's bullshit.
This is something that becomes an issue when you have a main character. No matter how bad things look, you know he will most likely prevail. And while there are other standout moments here, like Sung-woo deliberately not warning him, the defining moment is how he succeeds. Opposed to just getting lucky or something, he realizes he can lick his way out of this. That may have sounded wrong, as the honeycomb is in fact edible. Not only is that a smart decision, but it even encourages other players to do the same thing, potentially saving their lives, but the idea is so inventive, it stood out the most to me. I could have gone with the kid being executed after he was revealed. It definitely shows off their nature. And if you want a dishonorable mention, that whole stunt with using the lighter to cheat, how didn't they notice? Stick to the team is when things become slightly problematic, as we learn the contestants are allowed to kill each other, inevitably leading to a huge riot. We'll get to why it's problematic with the next episode, but for the time being, it definitely shakes things up. After Yeong-su kills another player because he was mad about him stealing food, the amount of money increases and the body's taken away. It makes it abundantly clear they don't have any regard for human life, and fairness is not a concern. They basically encourage the riot until the old man eventually stops it. I've stated multiple times this is an idea they kind of mess up in the next episode, but the moment when it first happens and the guards do nothing is an example of how Squid Game knows how to keep your attention. I could have considered the tug-of-war challenge and the idea the old man had to win. It's again real inventive, but at this point you kind of know nothing's gonna go as planned. This may annoy some people, but A Fair World is probably my least favorite episode. The only game we get to see is the conclusion of Tug of War, the outcome we knew we'd get, and aside from some character building, which is the best part, the episode focuses on the organ harvesting subplot. Well, that and Jun-ho's mission to find his brother, which leads him to learn he won the game in 2015. But picking a defining moment isn't easy, as the big payoff at the end doesn't make sense. Player 111 was assisting them in the organ harvest in exchange to know what the next game is, and when the front man finds out, he gives a speech about the fairness of this place, the equality. We just watched a bunch of contestants get massacred, not to mention a game that was luck-based, and one that heavily favored men. Granted, that maybe couldn't be avoided, but the whole righteous antagonist concept is the one thing this show completely fails at, and many reviews seems to ignore this. That's why so many people say Hell is the worst episode, but in my opinion, it's easily this. A subplot we don't care about, an antagonist spewing a bunch of nonsense. Horseshit! So if I had to pick something, it would be when Jun-ho executes the guard who found him out. It shows that he's willing to do so. That has to count for something. But overall, the real defining moment is that the show is not completely perfect. You can still like the video and subscribe down below, unless saying anything bad about this has deterred you. And of course, sharing the video is imperative nowadays with the broken algorithm, and you can find content like this over on the gaming channel, but with games. There's a link in the description. Still, you know what is perfect? Ganbu. I mean, what else can be said about this devastating yet perfectly made episode? This is when the contestants are told to team up, make up teams of 2 by shaking hands, primarily based off of friendship or maybe even being husband and wife, and then they find out they've actually selected their opponent. Yeah, this is more like the defining episode. It's the best part of the show by far, not even a question to that, and there's so many things I could go with. Possibly the moment when they find out what they have to do still leaves an impact. The way Sung-woo screws over Ali is both cold and heartbreaking, but due to the fact that we already know he'd do something like that, I've got to go with Sung Gin-hoon taking advantage of the old man's Alzheimer's to win the odds and even game. Again, it's debatable if it's something we'd expect him to do, but it's the relatability that gives it the edge. I mean, the old man is clearly dying, he doesn't need money for any reason, but still there is the concept of right and wrong, and he is blatantly lying. It's obvious he doesn't want to do it, and in the end the old man admits he knew what he was doing, but given the fact that he chose him as a partner when nobody else did, you know he's not really a bad person, and it makes you question what you would do. Accept death because the dying person rightfully won, or find a way to justify what's supposedly unjustifiable, and that is the reason it's the defining moment. Of the whole series, nothing really compares to this, to be honest. And while I don't usually say this, I can't rewatch this without feeling something. This and Red Dead Redemption 2, you know, the end of the main game, are really the only instances. Lots of unforgettable moments here, but in the end, something has to take it. Moving on to VIPs, yeah, stuff happens with the cop, but that's not going to be the star here. No, we have the game that's designed to kill almost everybody, showing off their true intention, and it is the most suspenseful game. Basically, glass stepping stones has the contestants pick which panel they want to stand on, and if they pick the wrong one, that's the end. This means you don't want to go first. Luckily, most of our leads got, well, lucky, and the defining moment this time has to be the standoff. Yeah, at this point, you know what the characters are capable of. It's hard to do something truly surprising. I guess Sung-woo pushing that one guy is supposed to be, but again, we knew he'd do that, and it's kind of justifiable given the man refused to move. But when Deok-soo demanded other contestants go before him to show off the proper path, it stands out for other reasons. It's to be expected, he had no chance of making it, and it makes you hate the character all the more. We know he's kind of pathetic, breaking rather easily, so when his former lover supposedly conceded to this, but actually decided they'd both go out together, it makes for a perfect end to them. They're both overly unlikable, they can't really add much at this point, and since she promised she'd be the end of him, it makes perfect sense. It's a fitting and poetic end, perfectly fits the characters, and it really is satisfying. You've gotta wonder why the episode frontman is so short. It's the second to last episode, and obviously it's gonna come down to two things, or two acts of murder. One of which being the cop, who is clearly not dead, season 2, and the other being Sae-brook. The frontman shooting his own brother ain't that surprising to me, but upon Sae-brook being mortally wounded during that last challenge, Sunwoo realizes they might vote to have the game end, and decides no. Instead he kills her with his complimentary knife, and while it is in character, it's still unexpected. I was caught off guard, even though I shouldn't have been, I was. It defines what kind of person he is, cold-blooded and ruthless, maybe the most dangerous one there, and killing one of the last main characters is definitely a defining moment. Not a lot to say about it, it's straightforward. Yeah, some people call this the best episode. No. The final game is great, don't get me wrong. Incredibly realistic, you get the sense they don't know how to fight, but still nothing too shocking. Kind of expected Sung-woo would change at the end a bit. Obviously Sung In-hoon would try to end it, give up the money and leave, and that wouldn't happen. And the victory would be less than bittersweet. So what's the final defining moment? Old man being alive. That is, him being part of the whole thing, wanting to play as he didn't have much longer. It's still something you don't expect, there are subtle hints at it, most notably his death not being seen, so this twist definitely works. What doesn't work is the continuation of, they had a choice. Like I keep saying, that's bullshit, but the fact that he's still alive, and the game they play being will anybody help the homeless guy, is still an effective scene. Am I saying the final episode is disappointing? No, but it's definitely not the best part. Still, the defining moment is there, and the final thing that makes Squid Game truly what it is. So that was the most defining moment in every Squid Game episode. Let me know what you thought down below. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and sharing the video is again very important. There'll be more Squid Game content when Season 2 finally comes out. I'm the Analyst, and remember kids, hypocrisy will never die. So, you've made it to the end. That's an impressive feat indeed. Since you managed that, I guess check out the gaming channel, in which I cover a variety of gaming topics, like analysis videos, such as this one. If you're into that, then press the link in the description. It's that simple.